Today, we're going to talk about the story behind one of the most popular Bible translations out there, the New Living Translation. The NLT. And it's a really fascinating story, full of unexpected twists, some pretty bold decisions, and really a deep, deep quest for clarity.
So let's just start with the biggest challenge of them all, the one the NLT translators were staring right in the face. How in the world do you take these ancient texts, written thousands of years ago in Hebrew and Greek, and make them speak like right now, to you and me, in a way that's clear and powerful? That's the whole ballgame.
So where did this whole thing even begin? Well, like a lot of massive projects, it actually started out as something much, much smaller.
Yeah, the original plan was not to create a brand new translation at all. Nope, the team just wanted to revise a really popular paraphrase that was already out there called the Living Bible. You can think of it like a tune-up for a car, not a total engine rebuild. But as you can probably guess, that is not what ended up happening. And this right here, this was the moment everything changed. As the scholars started digging into the revision, the project just grew. It became super clear that a simple touch-up wasn't going to cut it. So the entire mission shifted, and it turned into this brand new, massive quest to create a complete translation from the ground up, working directly from the original Hebrew and Greek manuscripts.
So this new mission basically put the translators on this kind of tightrope, right? They had to find a way to balance two totally different, competing ideas about how you even do translation. And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, so on one side of the rope, you've got what's called formal equivalence. This is a superliteral, word-for-word approach. And on the other side, you've got dynamic equivalence, which is all about translating the thought or the idea. Let me give you an example. If you translated the Spanish phrase, no tiene pelos en la lengua, word for word, you'd get, he has no hairs on his tongue, which is confusing, right? But a dynamic, thought-for-thought translation would be, he's very blunt. See, it captures the real meaning. So, which way did the NLT go? Well, they leaned in hard on dynamic equivalence. And the key thing to understand here is the goal. It was all about impact. The translators wanted a modern reader, someone picking it up today, to feel the same punch and clarity that the very first audience would have felt all those centuries ago. It's all about getting the entire thought across in natural, everyday English.
But, and this is super important, it's not just a thought-for-thought translation. The NLT actually uses a combination of both. The team carefully walked that tightrope, blending the two styles together. They wanted a text that was both really easy to get, but also really faithful to the original meaning. It was all about finding that sweet spot between clarity and precision.
Okay, so the translation is finally done. But how did people actually react to it? Let's take a look at its journey out in the real world and see how this whole unique approach paid off.
The first edition hit the shelves in 1996, but the work didn't stop there. They released a second, even more precise edition in 2004, and then another small revision in 2007. I mean, they were constantly tweaking it, making it better. And then came 2008, which was, to put it mildly, a huge year for them. That's right. After years of being a top seller, in July of 2008, the New Living Translation did something pretty incredible. It hit #1 in unit sales in the entire United States. Now, you might be thinking, okay, #1, that's cool. But why was this such a massive deal? Because to get to that top spot, it had to knock off the new international version, the NIV. And the NIV had been the undisputed king of Bible sales for more than 20 years. So yeah, this was a huge, huge achievement.
All right, so we've heard the backstory, we get the philosophy. But now let's actually hear what all that work produced. What does this thought-for-thought translation actually sound like?
Let's start with a really famous passage from the Gospel of John. Just listen to how direct this is. So the Word became human and made his home among us. That phrase, made his home, is so modern and relatable, especially when you compare it to older translations that say something like dwelt among us. It's still poetic, but it's crystal clear.
Okay, now for maybe the most famous verse in the entire Bible, John 3:16. The NLT says, "For this is how God loved the world. He gave his one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in him will not perish but have eternal life." The word choice here is subtle, but it's so powerful. Using one and only Son instead of the more traditional only begotten Son just strips away that old, archaic language. It makes the meaning feel immediate and really personal. And let's do one more, from Ephesians. This one deals with a pretty complex theological idea, but the NLT just breaks it right down for you. God saved you by his grace when you believed, and you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we've done. I mean, by just flat out saying you can't take credit and putting gift right up against reward, the translation makes this really sophisticated concept way more accessible. It clears it right up.
So as you can see from those examples, the NLT's greatest strengths are pretty clear. It's really easy to read, it's very easy to understand, and it's written in this high-quality contemporary English. This is the big payoff from taking that dynamic thought-for-thought approach. But that exact strength, that commitment to being thought for thought, also brings up a really critical question. It's a question that's right at the heart of the entire debate about how you should translate the Bible.
So here it is. By translating the thought instead of just the words, are you still just translating? Or have you actually crossed the line and started interpreting? In that quest for total clarity, does the translator's own understanding start to shape the text you're reading? It's a really interesting question, and it's one that every single reader has to think about for themselves.